And away we go. Episode 1125 of the Al Galdi podcast. It is Monday, August 4th, 2025, and we have entered a game week for the Commanders. Their first of three games in the NFL's 2025 preseason is this Friday night. Commanders at the New England Patriots on Friday night at 7:30, and the Commanders' joint practice at the Pats is this Wednesday. Hello and welcome to this Monday installment of the Al Galdi podcast, in which we talk Commanders on every episode, no matter the time of year. New episodes of this podcast 5 days per week, Monday through Friday, with each episode out by 5 a.m. Eastern and often much earlier. You never have to wonder when the next installment of this podcast is coming out. If you are a Commanders fan, you can count on this podcast being there when you wake up, and we appreciate you making this podcast part of your routine. Coming up on the show, a lot for you on the Commanders. Next segment, reaction to the big news on Friday afternoon, the D.C. Council approving the Commanders deal for a stadium on the RFK Stadium site by a vote of 9-3. There is one final vote for the council on the deal, but approval of the deal via that vote is very much expected. And so this long-anticipated, and I stress that word long, long-anticipated deal is at the 1 yard line of being entirely approved, the Commanders' next stadium being on the RFK Stadium site. The following segment, in-depth discussion of the latest in the Terry McLaurin situation. Details have started to emerge on the terms being exchanged in the stalled contract extension negotiations between the Commanders and their number one receiver. Also, head coach Dan Quinn, he on Saturday morning for the first time publicly addressed McLaurin having requested to be traded. And then the segment after that, training camp conversation, including the potential for a rotation between Josh Conerly Jr. and Andrew Wylie at right tackle. An update on quarterback Marcus Mariota. Dan Quinn acknowledging a QB3 competition between Sam Hartman and Josh Johnson, and whether the team is likely to keep 3 or 4 running backs on its initial 53-man roster for the 2025 season. And also on the show, I'll talk Nationals and Orioles as each team over the weekend began life after a major sell-off regarding the 2025 MLB trade deadline. The Nats, they over the weekend got demolished by the MLB-best Milwaukee Brewers in a 3-game sweep at Nationals Park. The Nats in the series got outscored 38-14. The O's, they over the weekend lost 2 out of 3 games at the Chicago Cubs. This off Orioles Executive Vice President and General Manager Mike Elias on Friday morning apologizing to Orioles fans for the team season. You can hit me up on X at Al Galdi. You can email me the Al Galdi podcast at yahoo.com. Feedback on Terry McLaurin having requested to be traded from Keith Horton on X, writes Keith. One thing about this, Al, is the optics are not good. Hate seeing this happen so soon for the new ownership. I'm not saying Peters is wrong, but I wish this sort of thing didn't happen to our team. Thank you for that, Keith. I don't disagree. Nobody likes how ugly this has gotten. From Juan on X, writes Juan, dare I say Terry is going from fan favorite to looking more and more like a villain. The market has spoken. Deal with it. Jaden made your stats. Trade him to the Cowboys for Parsons. Thank you for that, Juan. Dallas Cowboys edge defender Micah Parsons, he in a post on X on Friday afternoon announced that he has requested to be traded. Parsons is entering the 5th and final season of his rookie contract via the 5th-year option in the contract. And how about what Parsons said? Quote, yes, I wanted to be here. I did everything I could to show that I wanted to be a Cowboy and wear the star on my helmet. I wanted to play in front of the best fans in sports and make this America's team once again. The team my pops and I grew up cheering for way up in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Unfortunately, I no longer want to be here. I no longer want to be held to closed-door negotiations without my agent present. I no longer want shots taken at me for getting injured while laying it on the line for the organization, our fans, and my teammates. I no longer want narratives created and spread to the media about me. End quote. Wow. You know, as ugly as the Commanders' Terry McLaurin situation has gotten, the Cowboys' Micah Parsons situation has gotten even uglier. But like the McLaurin situation, and like the situation with Cincinnati Bengals edge defender Trey Hendrickson, who also has requested to be traded, do not be surprised at all if the Cowboys end up signing Parsons to a contract extension. So many of these situations appear all the way gone, and then money talks, and then the situation isn't so gone. By the way, regarding the potential for the Commanders trading for Micah Parsons, with whom Dan Quinn worked during his 3 seasons as Cowboys defensive coordinator 2021 through 2023. We, during Quinn's pre-practice press conference on Saturday morning at training camp, had this exchange between Mitch Tisler of Monumental Sports Network and Quinn.
I know during the offseason, you and AP are pretty, you talk often about personnel and whatnot. As you get to this point of the year and other situations kind of similar to Terry develop around the league, how much do you keep in touch with Adam about those sorts of things? And do you give your input there?
Yeah, we watch, the one thing we do together, just the two of us every day, is we watch practice together. And some of the time it's about practice when we're watching it. Other times it's around other things that goes. Just having that time together every day to talk, it's important, for us, for our relationship, for the team. And so you'd be surprised if you just put the tape on, it leads into one thing, you hit pause, something else comes up, you talk through it. And so we do that every day of practice. We watch just practice, the two of us together. He may catch me up on things. I try to give him insight on some of the things that a guy may be being coached on or how they're performing. There's a lot of players to evaluate, so it's not like you can see 90 players on, every day, every moment. So I try to highlight those players, and he gives me insights back. So I enjoy that time that we do that.
All right, so Dan Quinn was not asked specifically about Micah Parsons and did not talk specifically about Micah Parsons and really couldn't talk specifically about Micah Parsons given that he's under contract to another team. But the translation of what Quinn said right there is simple. Heck yeah. General Manager Adam Peters and I, we talk about everything that you might think that we talk about, and they should. I'm not expecting the Cowboys to trade Parsons, but of course the Commanders should be interested in him if he's available. He's one of the best defensive players in the NFL, and he has a really good relationship with Quinn. Email from Nate G. Writes, Nate, hey Al, I'm going to cut right to the chase. This Terry McLaurin situation has gotten out of control. I completely understand that a player requesting a trade during contract negotiations has become part of business in the NFL, but this is the last thing that I wanted to hear. I get AP needs to look out for the best interest of the team, but it is clear Terry isn't only a WR1, he is our WR1. The thought of seeing Terry in another uniform actually makes me sick, and if it got to that point, it would take a lot for Adam Peters to win back the majority of the fans. Terry is a living Washington legend. I can only hope to see him wearing the new throwback Skins uniform this year. Thank you for all you do. Well, thank you for the email, Nate. Terry McLaurin is under contract for this coming season. Do not lose sight of that. But I hear you, Nate. I do. I do not believe that Terry McLaurin truly wants to be traded. I do not believe that the Commanders want to trade McLaurin. I would be very surprised if they actually end up trading him. And like Nate and like many of you, I hope that McLaurin is with Washington for the entirety of his NFL career. I am a child of the 1980s and 1990s. I remember as a Redskins fan growing up seeing legendary Skins receiver Art Monk play for the New York Jets in the 1994 season and the Philadelphia Eagles in the 1995 season. That was terrible. I do not want that kind of thing with Terry McLaurin. As former Skins head coach Jay Gruden said on Thursday night in a post on X, quote, hate to see Terry asking for a trade. Can't see him anywhere else. You are a Redskin football team commander for life. End quote. Yes, McLaurin is a football team for life. Hey, a few things that you can do to support this podcast, and these are things that cost nothing and take very little time. First of all, you on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify can both rate the podcast and write reviews. The highest rating is a 5-star rating. It is greatly appreciated if you give the podcast a 5-star rating, and it is also greatly appreciated if you write like a 1 or 2 sentence review saying that you like the podcast. Also, following the podcast is a big help. If you have an iPhone, following the podcast is as simple as clicking on the word follow next to a plus sign near the top right of your screen. Thank you for doing these things. They help to make the podcast a success, and thank you for listening to the podcast. Well, we now are one step closer to the Commanders' deal for a stadium on the RFK Stadium site in Washington, D.C. being entirely approved. The D.C. Council, on Friday afternoon, approved the deal by a vote of 9-3. There is one final vote for the council on the deal. That vote will happen in mid-September, but the council is very much expected to approve the deal via that vote. So barring the unforeseen, and look, with this saga, you never know, but barring the unforeseen, this is happening. The Commanders' next stadium being on the RFK Stadium site. And the deal being approved by the D.C. Council this past Friday afternoon and tracking toward receiving final approval from the council in mid-September. These things make it so that the Commanders can maintain their construction timeline with the goal of the stadium opening for the 2030 NFL season. Commanders managing partner Josh Harris, Commanders limited partner Mark Ein, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser, and D.C. Council Chairman Phil Mendelson all issued statements on Friday afternoon. Josh Harris's statement, quote, "Today's approval by the council is transformational for D.C. and brings the Commanders back to our spiritual home. Like many fans, RFK was the site of memories that fueled my love for this team and this city. Now we're closer than ever to reigniting that energy for a new generation. We're incredibly grateful to the mayor and the council throughout this process for their leadership and guidance. This is a historic moment. This project is about more than delivering a world-class stadium worthy of our players, fans, and the region. It's about revitalizing a critical part of our city, creating thousands of jobs, and unlocking long-term economic benefits for the district. We look forward to working with our fans, residents, community leaders, and elected officials to deliver on this vision," end quote. Mark Ein's statement, which was via X, quote, "Huge step forward today towards a transformative and catalytic development for our city. Only happens with extraordinary collaboration between and leadership from Mayor Bowser, Chairman Mendelson, the entire D.C. City Council, and our Commanders leadership team," end quote. It was on April 28th that the Commanders and Mayor Bowser announced this deal for a stadium on the RFK Stadium site. We, on July 24th, got official word that the Commanders and the D.C. Council had agreed on a revised stadium deal in which the team made concessions, and now the deal is on the doorstep of receiving final approval from the council. August 2014 was when the Redskins first acknowledged that they were looking to build a new stadium. Then lead owner Dan Snyder in August 2014 told Comcast Sportsnet Mid-Atlantic, now Monumental Sports Network, that the team had, quote, "started the process," end quote, of finding a spot for a new stadium. Well, the process went on and on and on. Here we are now 11 years later, August 2025, and the process finally is just about done. Commanders head coach Dan Quinn, during the opening statement of his pre-practice press conference on Saturday morning at training camp, acknowledged the D.C. Council vote of approval for the stadium deal and praised Josh Harris. And then we later in Quinn's presser had this exchange.
Coach, we hear a ton from the fans about what the potential move back to D.C., what this means to the fan base and the community. I wonder for yourself, someone who's been around this game for decades, you remember when the team played in D.C., what's it like for you to presumptively be the head coach of this team if and when it returns back to its home?
Yeah, I know these guys have been working incredibly hard, man. Like, this is a lot of big steps, that they're putting together. So as much as I think about down the road, I also think about the work that's going in, like, right now, and the type of, attitude it takes to stand up and fight for what you want. So I haven't thought much about down the road, but I think at this point, gratitude for Josh and his team to, like, make this happen. I always have a real appreciation for people that put in the work, and obviously this takes a lot of work to do that. I wish I had coached at RFK. I didn't, but I saw it a lot. And as a, member of this, organization, the DMV, and so for all former Redskins, Commanders, everybody, like, there's that energy about it. So I'll leave it till then. But in this moment, I appreciate the work it takes to get to that next step.
2030 is 5 years from now. 5 years is an eternity in the NFL. Who knows what the Commanders will be as a team in 5 years? Who knows if the Commanders still will be the Commanders in 5 years? But the notion of this new stadium on the RFK Stadium site opening for the 2030 season with Jaden Daniels firmly entrenched as one of the NFL's elite quarterbacks, and Adam Peters and Dan Quinn firmly entrenched as one of the great GM head coach duos in the NFL, and the Commanders, or whatever they're called at that point, in the midst of a period of sustained success. Pretty exciting to think about that scenario. The 2030 season would be season number 7 for Peters, Quinn, and Daniels with the team, would be season number 8 for the Josh Harris group owning the team. As for the team's more immediate future, the contract extension situation with receiver Terry McLaurin, I'll get to that next. The Commanders on Friday, in a post on X, paid homage to receiver Terry McLaurin being number 52 on NFL Media's Top 100 Players of 2025. This post came less than 24 hours after reports that McLaurin has requested to be traded while in the midst of stalled contract extension negotiations with the team. And so the responses to this post were highly entertaining. From former Redskins quarterback Robert Griffin III on McLaurin, quote, "He should be in Washington for life, pay him," end quote. From Sleeper NFL, quote, "Are you serious, RN?" End quote. RN meaning right now. From Hoodie Khan, quote, "Y'all shouldn't have posted this," end quote. From Wizard Oz, quote, "How are you posting this and he doesn't even want to be on the team, LOL," end quote. From Caleb, quote, "Raising that trade value, huh? LOL, end quote. From Red Leader, quote, "This would mean he deserves to be paid, right?" End quote. You get the idea. We have gone from Terry McLaurin holding out to holding in to now having requested to be traded. July 15th, McLaurin, in a 32-plus minute session with reporters, sounded off on his frustration with the team in these negotiations, including calling what the team was offering him, quote, "disrespectful," end quote. McLaurin initially was a training camp holdout. He was on the reserve/did not report list from July 23rd to July 27th. The holdout on July 27th became a hold-in. He since that day has been on the active/physically unable to perform list. This due to an ankle injury that nobody believes is truly legitimate and everyone believes is a cover for him to not practice. And then we this past Thursday evening had the reports that McLaurin has requested to be traded. Now, we are starting to get a better sense of what each side wants/is offering. The first breakthrough in this came via what ESPN NFL insider Adam Schefter said on the Pat McAfee show last Monday afternoon, July 28th. Schefter said that he believed that McLaurin, quote, "wants considerably more," end quote, than a $33 million average annual value, a $33 million AAV. And we on Friday got a few more nuggets. This was NFL insider Ian Rappaport of NFL Network and NFL.com on NFL Network's Training Camp Live on Friday.
Terry McLaurin has, in fact, requested a trade. I've not gotten much of an indication on movement on this. Here's what we know. The two sides are at an impasse. They've tried to negotiate a long-term deal. McLaurin wants somewhere in the neighborhood of DK Metcalf, which is $33 million per year. They came into the same draft class. They have been similarly productive. They are not the same type of receiver, and McLaurin's a little older, but he wants similar money. The team has not yet been willing to go there. He held out. Now he's holding in. There's been nothing to spur these talks along, so McLaurin has requested a trade, and now we will see. Right? Now we'll see. Because if a team is willing to give premium draft pick compensation and pay him the $33 million per year he wants, will Washington do it? Rarely do teams trade one of their best players right before the season, but it is not unprecedented. The right deal could come. We'll see where the Commanders go from here, but clearly they wish they were in a much better place with one of their best players.
So Ian Rappaport saying that Terry McLaurin wants an AAV similar to that of Pittsburgh Steelers receiver DK Metcalf, $33 million. That is a little different than Adam Schefter saying that he believed that McLaurin, quote, wants considerably more, end quote, than a $33 million AAV. As for what the Commanders are offering, this was ESPN's Stephen A. Smith on ESPN's First Take on Friday morning on Terry McLaurin.
The brother is a guy that registers 1,000-yard seasons with regularity. He can ball. He is a valuable asset to their franchise. My sources tell me right now they're at about $27 million with him. To me, if they came, I think they should at least come up to 30. There's no question about that. But if they come up to 30 to 31 million, I'm not sure there's somebody else out there that's giving Terry McLaurin that kind of paper. And so when you ask for a trade, I definitely understand where he's coming from because he's a guy that's produced. He's a leader in the locker room. He's obviously a primary target for Jaden Daniels. We get that part.
Okay, not that Stephen A. Smith is a reputed NFL insider, okay, but he is a big name. He does talk to people. He said that his sources told him that the Commanders are offering Terry McLaurin, quote, about $27 million, end quote, per season. If all of this is true, then we do have a sizable gap. The Commanders offering McLaurin $27 million per season and McLaurin wanting at least $33 million per season. Now, of course, you can just say, hey, split the difference, $30 million, and let's all live happily ever after. But as our guest on this past Friday's show, episode 1124, Tony Pauline, consulting editor and NFL draft analyst for Sportskeeda, said, don't expect the Commanders to go beyond $30 million or even to $30 million. Tony on July 29th had a Sportskeeda.com report with intel on the Terry McLaurin situation. Tony wrote, quote, I asked league insiders to shed some light on what they think will happen with the Commanders' top receiver moving forward. People I've spoken with tell me that they expect a deal will get done sooner rather than later, though it's not going to be a huge contract. I'm told to expect a 2 to 3 year extension for McLaurin with a bump in pay this season to give him a bit more security. The holdup would be McLaurin demanding more than $30 million annually. People tell me they don't feel the franchise would be willing to go that high for McLaurin, end quote. NFL insider Albert Breer of the MMQB, he on Friday morning over 2 posts on X had the following quote, I don't think the Terry McLaurin Commander situation is irreparable, but the sides went over a month without talking and there's been little progress since. There's a divide across the board, APY, guarantees, etc., that needs to be bridged. Can it be? Sure. But McLaurin's willingness to do this is a sure sign of his frustration. Try to hold out, then a hold in, now this. None of it's easy for a dude who's been the ultimate program guy. The Commanders, meanwhile, have tried to stay disciplined on valuing players. It's a tough situation. End quote. Yes, it is. A lot to take in with all of this. Here's where I'm at. I do not think that Terry McLaurin truly wants to be traded. I do not think that the Commanders want to trade McLaurin. This trade request is a negotiating tactic, the likes of which many star NFL players in recent years have used. Baltimore Ravens quarterback Lamar Jackson, Cleveland Browns edge defender Myles Garrett, San Francisco 49ers receiver Brandon Ayuk, and current Commanders receiver Deebo Samuel Sr. during his time with the Niners. Do you know what all of those guys have in common? They all ended up signing big money contract extensions. In each instance, the trade request was not honored. My expectation has been that a contract extension or a new contract of some kind for Terry McLaurin with the Commanders will get done at some point before the start of the regular season. But if, in fact, McLaurin is being unreasonable with his demands and him wanting, quote, considerably more, end quote, than a $33 million AAV would constitute him being unreasonable, I am now more open to an extension perhaps not getting done and the team just playing this year to year. McLaurin's under contract for this coming season, and then the Commanders could franchise tag him for the 2026 season and even the 2027 season. So 3 more years of team control, his age 30 through 32 seasons. If the team is that concerned about this age issue, then that year-to-year approach is not crazy. Play the situation year to year and never have to worry about being locked into some onerous contract for a fading player. As we have discussed, the leverage in this situation is overwhelmingly with the Commanders and not McLaurin. And General Manager Adam Peters, of course, knows this. I do want to make this clear, though. I'm not mad at Terry McLaurin. This situation, to me, is each side acting in its best interest. Nothing personal, just business. I get where McLaurin is coming from, and I get where the team is coming from. I just think that the team has the leverage. And so a contract extension / new contract, if it gets done, is going to get done on the terms of Adam Peters. But if / when a contract extension / new contract gets done, the two sides will hug it out and will be fine. It'll be like a UFC fight for which the two fighters for weeks talk all kinds of smack and then destroy each other for 5 rounds and then hug and compliment each other after the fight. That happens all of the time. Holdouts, hold-ins, even trade requests, these things have become regular parts of NFL business. These things now are not the big relationship-wrecking ordeals that they were years ago. During Commanders head coach Dan Quinn's pre-practice press conference on Saturday morning at training camp, had this back and forth between Commanders insider John Keim of ESPN and Quinn.
All right, Dan, the other day, Terry requested a trade. I'm just curious your reaction to that.
Yeah, he had he let me know that was happening too, so I definitely appreciated that. Look, I think it's easy. We love Terry. I'm really glad he's here. Hopefully he's out practicing soon. And we also understand there's the business side of this things that Adam and his side and Terry and his reps are working it through. So I just kind of, stay in that space. We recognize both are happening. But like I said, I'm really glad he's here. I love coaching him. And but the business side, that's kind of where it's at. And it's not, somebody asked me, is it a distraction? It is not. The players today, they're more aware of contracts and things maybe than they used to be, and they recognize that business part happens as well. So for the team, we're just rocking and going and throwing some great practices. For Terry and the trade request, that's part of normal business that it's happening around the NFL. It's normal. We understand it, and we just throw our very best practices out on the field.
Well, you kind of ruined my second question.
That's what I tried to do.
But I'll stick with some of it anyway. But
see how that is an audible, John. Let's see you adjust, man.
Do you address?
I still got him. This never happens, you guys. This is awesome.
It's early. Do you address it with the players though? And do you ever worry that this becomes something bigger that you have to deal with?
No need. There's just no need to do that and compare and talk and compare another man's money. That's just not it. And so, like I said, around the NFL, I think there's more awareness maybe than there's ever been of teammates and contract and business. And so we don't address it. And this group is tight. And honestly, they're really focused on what they have to do in that time, knowing that behind the scenes, they know Adam and the guys are also working really hard at it too.
And I'm so glad that Dan Quinn right there shut down the notion of this Terry McLaurin situation being a distraction for players. This is not a distraction for players. The distraction angle is one of the most overrated and overstated things in sports. I mean, do you think that Jaden Daniels, when he's going through his reads on a play, is distracted by the Terry McLaurin situation and can't focus on what to do as the QB1? Do you think that Bobby Wagner, when he's trying to get off a block, is distracted by the Terry McLaurin situation and can't focus on what to do as a linebacker? Do you think that the kicker, Matt Gay, when he's attempting a 50-yard field goal, is distracted by the Terry McLaurin situation and shanks the kick? I don't think that that's how this works. I thought that Dan Quinn in that cut that I just played for you addressed things in a very good way. Also, an NFL player judges a front office by how it handles him, not by how it handles another player. An NFL player judges a front office by how much money it pays him, not by how much the front office pays another player. So this whole issue of the Terry McLaurin situation being a distraction, the Terry McLaurin situation negatively impacting other Commanders players, I think all of that stuff gets overblown. We on Saturday morning had this back and forth between Commanders insider Nikki Zavala of The Athletic and Dan Quinn.
Hi, Dan. I know you said this is part of the NFL, players have more awareness, but is there any part of you that is surprised that it's gotten to this point with Terry?
I'm not surprised. Honestly, I'm glad he's here, and I do love coaching him, Nikki. So I've tried to avoid judging it. I can't be in his spots. I recognize the players are trying to set themselves and their families up, so I try not to put myself into that spot. It's too easy to say, man, if I had that much, I'd be this or that, and so I don't go there. Try to support him, as best I can, but we don't discuss the finance part of things. That's the partnership with Adam and I. Where's our strengths? How do we work together? And many things we do together. This is not one of them.
And while he's been in the building, how has he been with the other guys?
Good. Like I said, the mornings are different because he's doing the strength work and soon to be some field work too. But then the afternoons is kind of normal. We do team meetings and then in the walkthroughs. He can't participate them, but he's around. He's standing next to Bobby and hearing the calls. So it's good to be around teammates. It really is, because those are the people like we spend so much time with, and that's why having an environment where you work at is so important. We spend half our lives together here. And so creating an environment of one that's like, man, I enjoy coming here. I get better. People challenge me. It's a really cool place to come work and play football. And we work hard at that too, the environment. And so he's definitely part of that and feels those guys. And even though he's not participating, there's still plenty to do.
Well, Terry McLaurin was at Saturday morning's practice. He at one point shook hands and bro-hugged Commanders managing partner Josh Harris. It's really hard to be mad at McLaurin. He's a good player and a good guy, and I feel like even this trade request, as ugly as it is, happened in a fairly amicable way. If there's such a thing as a nice trade request, I feel like that's what we have here with Terry McLaurin and the Commanders. So we on Saturday morning had this exchange between Les Carpenter of the Washington Post and Dan Quinn.
Holdouts and contract things can get, especially to get to this point, very emotional.
Yes.
You can kind of get away really fast. How is this not? How do you not make it emotional? I mean,
you're right. I'm glad that you brought it up, because sometimes those are the emotions, and that's the human side of it, right? And knowing there can be emotions, that's the ones you attach to at that moment. And so for me as the coach, give the support, give the insights. Do you want advice? Not. And so that's the way that you do it. But it is an emotional time. It's so damn important. And each player, it won't be quite the same in how that's happening, their support, their age, all of that. So I just try to not judge it as best I can. And it's not always that easy to do, knowing it's an emotional time. Our times together are intense for different reasons. Sometimes it's the competitive intensity. Other times it's something like this where you're just, and you're feeling some kind of way. So I just try to make sure, man, support the player as best they can, knowing that they're, accessing emotions that are hard.
And that's exactly the approach that Dan Quinn should take. His public handling of this Terry McLaurin situation has been really good. Quinn has framed everything in a very practical and intelligent and disarming way. By the way, the Commanders on Saturday morning announced the signing of a receiver. They announced the signing of unrestricted free agent receiver Braylon Sanders. So the corresponding roster move was them placing tight end Tyree Jackson on the reserve/injured list. Braylon Sanders has bounced around the NFL, but his most recent professional football experience was with the D.C. Defenders during their 2025 UFL championship season. The Nace Law Group, accident and injury lawyers. It has been a Washington, D.C. institution for decades. If you feel that you've been wronged, if you think that you've been wronged but aren't sure, contact the Nace Law Group, accident and injury lawyers, and schedule a no-obligation appointment. Call 202-902-7611 or visit WashingtonDCInjuryLawyers.com and tell the Nace Law Group that Al Galdi sent you. The NACE Law Group offers fierce advocacy on behalf of medical malpractice, birth injury, and personal injury victims. Led by the great Chris Nace, the NACE Law Group is focused on providing exceptional care and counsel for those who need such things the most. The NACE Law Group fights for what it believes in, you, your family, and your future. You with the NACE Law Group have an experienced advocate on your side. The NACE Law Group has secured millions of dollars in verdict and settlement amounts for clients to better enable them to care for themselves and their families. Call 202-902-7611 or visit Washington, D.C. injurylawyers.com and tell the NACE Law Group that Al Galdi sent you. That's 202-902-7611 or Washington, D.C. injurylawyers.com, and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. The NACE Law Group, Accident and Injury Lawyers. More now from Commanders training camp. The team held just one full practice over the last 3 days. That practice was on Saturday morning. The team's next full practice at camp is on Monday morning. We have the Commanders joint practice at the New England Patriots this Wednesday, and then we have the Commanders at the Patriots on Friday night at 7:30 in each team's 2025 preseason opener. During Saturday morning's practice, did have some players get banged up. Receiver Deebo Samuel Sr., he suffered a jammed finger on a pass thrown by quarterback Jaden Daniels. Didn't seem to be anything major. Deebo later appeared on Bleacher Report's coverage of Commanders training camp and appeared to be all right. Also, left guard Brandon Coleman, he during practice limped off the field. No word on the ailment or how serious it is. An NFL team during training camp and during the preseason is not required to put out any injury reports. Official injury reports for an NFL season do not start until the days leading into week 1 of the regular season. Now, I mentioned Brandon Coleman. He's making this transition from left tackle to left guard as the team took offensive tackle Josh Conerly Jr. out of the University of Oregon with the number 29 overall pick in the 2025 NFL Draft. Coleman, last regular season, as you may remember, initially split time with Cornelius Lucas at left tackle before becoming the team's true number 1 left tackle. Conerly right now is competing with Andrew Wylie for the starting right tackle job. Could we come the regular season see a rotation at right tackle with Conerly and Wylie like we saw with Coleman and Lucas at left tackle last regular season? During Commanders head coach Dan Quinn's pre-practice press conference on Saturday morning, had this back and forth between Commanders insider Ben Standig and Quinn.
Dan, curious about last year when you guys decided to rotate the tackles with Brandon and Cornelius. How did you guys decide to sort of get to that? And did that experience kind of help you as you're looking this year with Josh and Andrew possibly?
We just want to make competition as like the central theme then. And if we do that at quarterback last year with Jaden and Marcus, and at tackle with Brandon and Luke, and we're doing it again right now with Andrew and Josh, it's part of who we are. And I never wanted a player to ever feel anything other than that. If you get this gig, you earned it, and you had to fight for it. And that's the world of a competitor. And so it's designed, some by day, some by period. And it takes a while to get there. You have to go through some more evaluations, but it's important.
Do you think that rotation could be in play this year, or it's just too early? You'll just have to see how Josh progress.
Yeah, definitely too early to say. Some of Brandon's injury was a factor in that during training camp last year, Ben, so we started that way, but too early to call.
The regular season in-game rotation at an offensive line spot is an interesting concept. We had this in Ron Rivera's third season as Washington head coach, the 2022 season, during which he had Samuel Cosme rotating with Cornelius Lucas at right tackle and rotating with Trey Turner at right guard. And then we had the Brandon Coleman, Cornelius Lucas rotation at left tackle this past season. I can't imagine that the players like being rotated like that, but the Coleman-Lucas rotation last season did seem to work fairly well. The Commanders' QB2, Marcus Mariota, he had not been participating in team drills lately, prompting speculation about his health, but he on Saturday morning was back to participating in team drills. We on Saturday morning had this exchange between Commanders insider J.P. Finley of NBC4 and Dan Quinn.
With Mariota not really doing much team drills lately, we've seen a lot of Sam Hartman. Have you decided on a plan for New England, like next Friday night, and when will you come up with that?
Yeah, Marcus is back full at it today, and so that will adjust. But that is the silver lining that happens where Josh and Sam got more reps. They're certainly in their own battle, as we're looking at the third quarterback spot. So often we say this starting spot or this starting spot, but there's this type of competition all over, and there's a long way to go for that. But we're going to be creative in how we get the playing time for them, and some of that will include game time, and we'll look forward to that. But we've not finalized any of that until we kind of get ready for our trip. We're kind of in this space. We'll take a day, and then we'll begin the prep for New England and how much practice versus playing along those lines.
All right, Dan Quinn right there acknowledging that there is, in fact, a competition for QB3, Sam Hartman versus Josh Johnson. No surprise that that's the case, but that had not really come up. Also a competition is the situation at running back. So entering training camp, the Commanders at running back seem to be Brian Robinson Jr., RB1, Austin Eckler, RB2, and then a battle for RB3 involving Jeremy McNichols, Chris Rodriguez Jr., and Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. Well, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt is really standing out in this training camp. If he has a strong preseason, the RB3 job may well be his. Heck, I would not dismiss this guy at some point this coming season becoming the team's RB1. But there's also this. The team, for its initial 53-man roster for the 2025 season, could keep 4 as opposed to 3 running backs. So the Commanders, in their cut down to 53 for the 2024 season, kept 3 running backs, Brian Robinson Jr., Austin Eckler, and Jeremy McNichols. What about the possibility of keeping 4 on that initial 53? We on Saturday morning had this exchange involving Dan Quinn.
Coach, wanted to ask you about kind of your running back room overall here, and have you had any, just in your time as a head coach, have you had a philosophy over maybe how many running backs you like to keep on the roster, or does that change from team to team, and has it kind of evolved over your time as a head coach?
It does evolve. It does change. There's also the special team side of things, and I think with kickoff returning at a premium now too, is the returner have those running back traits? So I think you're on a great topic. It'll be interesting to see in this year and the years ahead how many of those returners are running backs, how many are receivers, and it will definitely factor the roster. Most teams also have, additional running backs on the practice squad that can get elevated, but it's definitely more, and I do think that the special teams is a really big factor into that. So having that additional value, that's a big deal.
And we heard Dan Quinn bring up special teams. We on Saturday morning again had Austin Eckler and Deebo Samuel as a kickoff return pair. You wonder if that'll be the team's number 1 kickoff return pair for the regular season. The pair has promise. Eckler for the 2024 regular season was one of the best kickoff returners in the NFL, 31.3 yards per kickoff return over 19 kickoff returns, although he last regular season did suffer 2 concussions. But while we're talking special teams, good stuff from safety and special teams ace Jeremy Reeves during a post-practice press conference on Saturday morning. We, during that presser, had this exchange between Commanders insider John Keim of ESPN and Reeves.
For special teams, it seems like we were talking to a couple of guys on the sidelines. Like, it seems like there's more of the core guys in building that more. Do you see? I mean, obviously you and Nick, but right. Guys like Percy, some other guys like that. Is there a bigger, deeper core than there's been in the past?
Yeah, man. I always say these people. People only pay attention to like the main guys that get the the recognition, but it takes all 11, right? Percy's been pivotal, since he's been here, right? Hasn't got a lot of talk, but like. He's one of those dudes that has always showed up and always made plays when he's out there, So it's like it takes a village out there to go and compete and get the job done. He's one of those guys, and along with some of the younger guys that are coming along. Kane's coming along really well. He's going to be a really good player. Bill's going to be a really good player out there for us as well. So, like, these are young guys that are kind of taking after what the vets are saying and kind of just running with it because, the standard is the standard with that group.
So Jeremy Reeves highlighting safety Percy Butler, linebacker/safety Kane Medrano, and Bill, running back Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt as special team standouts. The Commanders on July 25th announced having signed Percy Butler to a contract extension, what reportedly is a one-year contract extension. The 2025 season had been set to be the final season of his 4-year rookie contract. And yeah, Percy Butler, really key special teams player for the Commanders. He last regular season played in all 17 of the Commanders games, played on 36.84% of the team's defensive snaps, but played on 62.61% of the team's special team snaps. He was number 4 on the team in special team snaps. Ingrained Floor Covering Solutions. It provides residential and commercial carpet and wood flooring solutions for the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area and has been doing so for 2 generations and over 40 years. Ingrained Floor Covering Solutions is a full-service wood flooring and carpet provider. Wood floor cleaning, refinishing, and installation, carpet repair, carpet installation, and custom rug fabrication. Excellent and reliable work, and Ingrained Floor Covering Solutions self-performs all installations. No subcontractors. The person who you meet on the initial consultation or measurement will be the same person doing the actual work. The wood flooring in our house has taken quite a beating from our 2 small kids. This is exactly the kind of thing that Ingrained Floor Covering Solutions can fix. High-level wood floor cleaning and refinishing, screen and recoat, sand and finish, etc. And here's a special deal for listeners of this podcast. Visit ingrainedfs.com, mention that Al Galdi sent you, and you'll get a 10% discount. That's ingrainedfs.com. Mention that Al Galdi sent you, and you'll get a 10% discount. The best organizations in sports are resilient, and the Nationals just got swept by one of the most resilient teams in sports, the Milwaukee Brewers. The Brewers in October 2022 lost their president of baseball operations, David Stearns, who stepped down and who in October 2023 was hired by the New York Mets to be their president of baseball operations. The Brewers in November 2023 lost their manager, Craig Counsell, who left to become the Chicago Cubs manager. And yet the Brewers, who don't exactly have a sky-high payroll, are in the midst of a 9th consecutive winning regular season. This is the kind of organization that the Nats should be seeking to have. An organization that is resilient, that can withstand the departures of a highly respected head of baseball ops and a highly respected manager. I hope that Nats ownership, the Lerner family, is studying a successful team like the Brewers, with the Nats on July 6th having fired president of baseball operations and general manager Mike Rizzo and having fired manager Davey Martinez, and with the Nats being in the midst of a 6th consecutive losing regular season in a rebuild that is not working. The Nats over the weekend got swept by the Brewers in 3 games at Nationals Park. Friday evening, a 16-9 loss to the Brewers in a game in which the Nats allowed the Brewers to total a staggering 25 hits, the most hits allowed by the Nats in a regular season game since the franchise moved to Washington, D.C. in the 2004-2005 offseason. Saturday, an 8-2 loss to the Brewers, and Sunday afternoon, a 14-3 loss to the Brewers in a game in which the Nats allowed the Brewers to score 7 runs in the top of the 7th. The Nats in this series got outscored 38-14. The Nats now have lost 5 consecutive games. The Nats in MLB's 2025 regular season now are 44-67. That is the second worst record in the National League, and their run differential now is minus 134. That is the second worst run differential in the NL. The Brewers in this regular season now are 67-44. Best record in the majors. Again, a resilient team. As you may recall, the Nats pitching the previous weekend was good. The Nats the previous weekend won 2 out of 3 games at the Minnesota Twins, and the Nats pitching in that series was good. The Nats pitching this past weekend was not good. Both the starting pitching and the relief pitching were awful. We begin with the starting pitching. The 16-9 loss to the Brewers on Friday evening. Mitchell Parker allowed 8 runs in 4 innings. He gave up 12 hits, which were 2 home runs, 2 doubles, and 8 singles. He issued a walk. He recorded 3 strikeouts. He threw threw a lot of pitches, did throw a lot of strikes. He over his 4 innings threw 84 pitches, but 59 strikes versus just 25 balls. But Parker in the top of the third allowed 5 runs on 2 doubles, 4 singles, and a sac fly. Parker had done well in each of his previous 2 starts, but he in this start got ripped. And so Mitchell Parker now for this regular season, 22 starts, ERA of 5.35, whip of 1.47. The 8-2 loss to the Brewers on Saturday, Jake Irvin allowed 5 runs in 4 innings. He gave up 8 hits, which were a home run, 3 doubles, and 4 singles. He issued 2 walks. He recorded just 2 strikeouts. He threw 75 pitches, 46 strikes versus 29 balls. Irvin in the top of the first allowed 3 runs on a leadoff double, a walk, and 3 consecutive one-out RBI singles, giving him a first-inning ERA of 9.39 for this regular season, in which he over 23 starts now has an overall ERA of 4.89 and an overall whip of 1.33. And the 14-3 loss to the Brewers on Sunday afternoon, Brad Lord in his third start since going from the bullpen back to the rotation struggled. He allowed 3 runs in 4 2/3 innings. He gave up 6 hits, which were a home run, and 5 singles. He issued 2 walks. He did record 6 strikeouts, and he did throw a good number of strikes, 92 pitches, 58 strikes, 34 balls. But as you can tell, the pitch count was really high. 4 2/3 innings, 92 pitches. Lord in the top of the second gave up a 2-out, 2-run homer by Bryce Terang to right field for a 3-0 Brewers lead. Bryce Terang, in case you don't know, is the brother-in-law of Commanders punter Tress Way. And then there is the Nats bullpen. Wow. A new level of bad in this series. Nats relievers in this series combined to allow 22 runs, 19 earned in 14 1/3 innings. The 16-9 loss to the Brewers on Friday evening, 4 Nats relievers combined to allow 8 runs, 6 earned in 5 innings. The 8-2 loss to the Brewers on Saturday, 3 Nats relievers combined to allow 3 runs in 5 innings. And the 14-3 loss to the Brewers on Sunday afternoon, 6 Nats relievers combined to allow 11 runs, 10 earned in 4 1/3 innings. The Nats, in the lead-up to the 2025 MLB trade deadline, which was this past Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern, traded 3 relievers, in closer Kyle Finnegan and relievers Luis Garcia and Andrew Chafin. That, of course, further weakened an already very weak Nats bullpen. The Nats on Friday afternoon announced having recalled 3 pitchers from AAA Rochester, starter/reliever Shinosuke Ogasawara, and relievers Orlando Revolta and Ryan Ludis. And the results over the weekend were frightening. Now, Ogasawara wasn't bad. He in the 8-2 loss to the Brewers on Saturday officially allowed 2 runs in 3 innings. He tossed 3 scoreless innings, but he in the top of the 8th got charged with 2 runs off beginning that inning with a double, an RBI double, and a bunt single. Revolta in the 8-2 loss to the Brewers on Saturday in the Brewers' 2-run 8th faced 3 batters and got 3 outs, one of which was a 1-out RBI sac fly. So neither Ogasawara nor Revolta was that bad in his work over the weekend. But other Nats relievers did quite poorly, including Ryan Ludis. He in the 16-9 loss to the Brewers on Friday evening allowed 5 runs, 3 earned in 1 inning. He in the top of the 7th allowed 5 runs, 3 earned on a home run, 4 singles, and a hit by pitch. Also in the inning were 2 errors, a throwing error by shortstop C.J. Abrams and a fielding error by Ludis. And Ludis in the 14-3 loss to the Brewers on Sunday afternoon officially allowed 1 run in 2/3 of an inning, but he in the Brewers' 7-run 7th to the first batter he faced gave up a 1-out 2-run homer by Bryce Terang to right field on a 1-2 pitch for a 12-1 Brewers lead. And the Nats shortly after the game announced having optioned Ludis to AAA Rochester. The Nats offense and the team getting swept by the Brewers over the weekend. Good in Game 1, bad in Games 2 and 3. The 16-9 loss to the Brewers on Friday evening. The Nats scored 9 runs, totaled 15 hits, worked 4 walks, and went 5 for 18 with runners in scoring position. The 15 hits were a home run, a triple, 3 doubles, and 10 singles. Although 5 of the runs, 4 of the hits, and 2 of the walks did come in a 5-run 9th in what was garbage time. But the Nats in this game got good production from young players. C.J. Abrams, he is the Nats starting shortstop and number 1 batter, went 3 for 5 with a double, an RBI single, another single, and a walk, although he did commit 2 throwing errors. Dalen Lyle, he is the Nats starting right fielder and number 7 batter, went 2 for 4 with an RBI triple, an RBI double, and a hit by pitch. Brady House, he is the Nats starting third baseman and number number 6 batter went 2 for 5 with a 2-run single and another single. And Robert Hassel III came off the bench to play center field and went 2 for 2 with a double and a 2-run single. The Nats on Friday afternoon announced having recalled Hassel from AAA Rochester. The 8-2 loss to the Brewers on Saturday. The Nats scored just 2 runs, a total just 2 hits, worked just 2 walks, and went 1 for 3 with runners in scoring position. The 2 hits were a home run and a single. Brewers starting pitcher Brandon Woodruff allowed 2 runs in 6 innings with 8 strikeouts versus 1 walk. A bright spot was Robert Hassel III. He is the Nats starting center fielder, and number 9 batter went 1 for 3 with a 2-run homer. And the 14-3 loss to the Brewers on Sunday afternoon, the Nats scored just 3 runs, in total just 7 hits, which were 3 doubles and 4 singles. The Nats did work 4 walks and did go 3 for 7 with runners in scoring position. Now, the Brewers starting pitcher was supposed to be rookie sensation Jacob Mizorowski, a.k.a. The Miz, but the Brewers on Sunday morning announced having placed The Miz on the 15-day injured list, retroactive to July 31st due to a left tibia contusion. The corresponding roster move was the Brewers recalling starting pitcher Logan Henderson from AAA Nashville, and he is the starting pitcher on Sunday afternoon, allowed 1 run in 4 1/3 innings. Again, the Brewers are a resilient team. Dalen Lyle, again, was a bright spot. He is the Nats starting left fielder, and number 5 batter went 2 for 4 with 2 singles. As for James Wood, his slump does continue. He was the Nats number 2 batter in each of the 3 games in the series. The 16-9 loss to the Brewers on Friday evening, Wood as the Nats starting left fielder went 1 for 4 with a single and a walk. The 8-2 loss to the Brewers on Saturday, Wood as the Nats starting left fielder went 0 for 4 with 2 strikeouts, although each of the strikeouts was bogus. Wood in the bottom of the 3rd struck out looking to end the inning, but the plate appearance, which featured 3 called strikes, included a last called strike that was way outside and not at all a strike. And Wood in the bottom of the 6th struck out swinging to end the inning, though he very much checked his swing. Nats interim manager Miguel Cairo argued what happened, was ejected by home plate umpire Chris Guccione, who did not have the best of games. But the 14-3 loss to the Brewers on Sunday afternoon, Wood as the Nats starting DH went 0 for 3 with a walk and 2 strikeouts. So James Wood in the series went 1 for 11 with a single and 2 walks. No game for the Nats on Monday. Next up for them is a 3-game series against the American League West Worst Athletics at Nationals Park. Game 1 Tuesday evening at 6:45, Mackenzie Gore will be the Nats starting pitcher. Game 2 Wednesday evening at 6:45, the Nats starting pitcher is to be announced. Game 3 Thursday afternoon at 12:05, Mitchell Parker will be the Nats starting pitcher. Well, here's all you need to know about this Orioles season. Orioles Executive Vice President and General Manager Mike Elias on Friday morning apologized to Orioles fans for the season. That says quite a bit. The O's over the weekend lost 2 out of 3 games at the Chicago Cubs. Friday afternoon, a 1-0 loss at the Cubs. Saturday afternoon, a 4-3 win at the Cubs in a game in which the O's overcame a 3-0 8th-inning deficit by scoring 4 runs in the top of the 8th. But Sunday afternoon, a 5-3 walk-off loss at the Cubs. The O's in MLB's 2025 regular season now are 51-61, 3rd worst record in the American League. More on the series shortly, but Mike Elias on Friday morning did a post-MLB trade deadline virtual press conference. So the presser lasted for more than 26 minutes, and he, during the presser, apologized to Orioles fans for this season. Here you go.
In terms of staying engaged with the fans, we are sorry that 2025 has gone this way. A lot had to go wrong, and it has. And, we're addressing that, and part of it is doing the right thing by the talent in the organization with the deadline. And we've, between the draft and the deadline, we've had an enormous injection of talent to the organization. It's going to benefit us short term, but also long term. And it needed to be done, and we executed well in those constraints. We have an extremely exciting group of young players on the Orioles that we've all come to enjoy, and these guys are still here. They're fighting hard. They're aware as a group of where we're at and very determined to do better going forward. So these guys are still here as the heart and soul, and they are still with us, and we have a great place to start as we build for the rest of 2025 and 2026 with Gunnar, Adley, Jackson Holiday, Colton Cowser, Jordan Westberg, a lot of good players coming, and we're in a good spot despite the misfortunate first half.
As I've said, I do not think that the O's need to undergo another rebuild. I do think that they can be good again as soon as next season, but this season has been really bad. The Orioles offense in the team losing 2 out of 3 games at the Cubs over the weekend, nowhere near good enough. The O's over the 3 games totaled a mere 7 runs, and 4 of the runs came in 1 inning. Now, the O's in the lead up to the 2025 MLB trade deadline, which was this past Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern, traded a good number of key hitters, right? Ryan O'Hearn, Ramon Laureano, Cedric Mullins, and the O's over the weekend felt those absences. The O's in their 1-0 loss at the Cubs on Friday afternoon scored no runs, totaled just 3 hits, and went 0 for 3 with runners in scoring position. The 3 hits were a double and 2 singles. The O's did draw 4 walks, but Cubs reliever Andrew Kittredge, who the O's traded to the Cubs this past Thursday morning, he tossed a perfect top of the 7th with 2 strikeouts. The O's in their 4-3 win at the Cubs on Saturday afternoon scored 4 runs, totaled 7 hits, worked 2 walks, and went 2 for 5 with runners in scoring position. The 7 hits were a home run, a double, and 5 singles. Gunnar Henderson, he is the Orioles starting DH and number 3 batter, went 2 for 4 with a 3-run homer and a single. Henderson in the Orioles, a 4-run 8th, had a 2-out 3-run homer to center field on a 1-2 pitch for a 4-3 Orioles lead. The homer went a projected 416 feet per StatCast, but the O's in their 5-3 walk-off loss at the Cubs on Sunday afternoon scored just 3 runs, totaled just 7 hits, and went just to 2 for 10 with runners in scoring position. The 7 hits were 2 doubles and 5 singles. The O's did work 3 walks, but Andrew Kittredge struck again. He tossed a perfect top of the 7th. The Orioles starting pitching in the team losing 2 out of 3 games at the Cubs over the weekend. Great in Game 1, and then so-so in Games 2 and 3. The 1-0 loss at the Cubs on Friday afternoon. The rise of Trevor Rogers continued. This is the bright spot with the O's right now. Rogers allowed 1 run in 8 innings with 8 strikeouts versus no walks. He gave up 4 hits, which were 2 doubles and 2 singles. He threw a lot of strikes, 88 pitches, 68 strikes versus just 20 balls. Trevor Rogers now for the O's at the major league level in this regular season. 9 starts, ERA of 1.44, whip of 0.75. The 4-3 win at the Cubs on Saturday afternoon. Tomoyuki Sagano allowed 3 runs in 5 innings. He gave up 5 hits, which were 2 doubles and 3 singles. He did have 5 strikeouts versus 1 walk. He threw 95 pitches, 58 strikes versus 37 balls. And the 5-3 walk-off loss at the Cubs on Sunday afternoon. Brandon Young was the Orioles starting pitcher. The O's this past Thursday morning announced having recalled Young from Double-A Chesapeake. Young on Sunday afternoon allowed 2 runs, both of which were unearned in 4 2/3 innings. He gave up 5 hits, which were a double and 4 singles. He issued 2 walks. He recorded 4 strikeouts. He threw a good number of strikes, 80 pitches, 52 strikes, just 28 balls. The Orioles bullpen in the team losing 2 out of 3 games at the Cubs over the weekend was good, really with the exception of 1 outing by 1 reliever. Now, the O's did not use any relievers in the 1-0 loss at the Cubs on Friday afternoon due to Trevor Rogers being so good. The 4-3 win at the Cubs on Saturday afternoon, 4 Orioles relievers combined for 4 scoreless innings. Keegan Aiken tossed a scoreless bottom of the 9th for the save despite issuing 2 walks, but he generated 2 swinging strikeouts, including one of the Cubs' number 4 batter, Pete Crow Armstrong, with runners on first and second to end the game. But the 5-3 walk-off loss at the Cubs on Sunday afternoon, 3 Orioles relievers combined to allow 3 runs, 2 earned in 3 1/3 innings. Dietrich Enns, he allowed 1 run in 1 2/3 innings in his Orioles debut. The O's this past Thursday night acquired Enns. Yes, the O's actually made a trade acquisition in the lead-up to the 2025 MLB trade deadline. The O's acquired Enns from the Detroit Tigers in exchange for cash considerations. Cade Stroud, he tossed 1 2/3 perfect innings, but Keegan Aiken, pitching for a second consecutive day, allowed 2 runs, 1 earned without recording an out. He in the bottom of the 9th with the game tied at 3, was victimized by a leadoff throwing error by third baseman Jordan Westburg, and then gave up a walk-off first pitch, a 2-run homer by Justin Turner to left center field for a 5-3 Orioles loss. Next up for the O's is a 3-game series at the Philadelphia Phillies. Game 1 Monday evening at 6:45. Cade Povich will be the Orioles starting pitcher in his return from the 15-day injured list. Game 2 Tuesday evening at 6:45. Dean Kramer will be the Orioles starting pitcher. Game 3 Wednesday afternoon at 12:35. Trevor Rogers will be the Orioles starting pitcher. And that'll do it for you and me for now. Keep the feedback coming. You can hit me up on X at Al Galdi. You can email me the Al Galdi podcast at yahoo.com. Tuesday show, episode 1126. We'll have plenty for you on the Commanders. Also on Tuesday's show, I'll talk Orioles. The O's are at the Philadelphia Phillies Monday evening at 6:45 in Game 1 of a 3-game series. Have a great rest of your Monday, and I'll talk to you on Tuesday.
I wish I had coached at RFK. I didn't, but I saw it a lot. And as a, member of this, organization, the DMV, and so for all former Redskins, Commanders, everybody, there's that energy about it.